Hello and welcome to the HR Book Club with HR Recruitment Solutions. In this series, we look at the best HR books out there and get a chance to meet some of the authors. And today I'm joined by Glenn Jones and we're going to be discussing his book, Human Resources Changes the World. Hi Glenn, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, Leon. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. So before we talk about the book, let's talk a little bit more about you. So some people obviously won't be aware of you. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how you got into HR and what you're doing now with your career.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's quite an interesting story. And so I left school at 16 with 1 level in commerce
Okay.
at a really good grade. So um, essentially, at the start, what I wanted to do was to go into the Royal Military Police and as a bandsman, and also into the RAF, so that my family is musical going back generations. So actually, that was
Okay.
my aspiration, but I actually failed the medical. So on my ears, would you believe? Um, cut a long story short, so the options that I had really then were to start working, which I did. So I went on a youth training scheme initially to do engine reconditioning, which was all about sort of taking engines apart. But
Yeah.
very shortly after I joined that course, the office manager came out and she said, "Glenn, um, I noticed you've got commerce." And I went, "Yes." So I was hands full of grease. And she said, "How would you like to come and work in this nice warm office where there's 10, 16 to 18-year-old women, where we teach you everything about HR and office management, etc." And my career just went from there. And no surprises, I said yes straight away. And so from 16 onwards, I started building my HR career dynamically. So I was very curious. I wanted to understand systems. I wanted to understand the why, what was
Mhm.
HR all about, and now people. So that I was more rounded around that. And I started off in payroll and then I grew from there. I did my first system implementation in 1987 at Hoover. And over the last sort of X amount of years, I won't say how long, I've worked through 19 different sectors in 38 countries globally. So now today, essentially, I'm a freelance HR consultant and have been for the last nine and a half years. But back in June, I decided to take my first fixed term contract, where I'm now working as the interim HR director for EMEA for White and Case, the law firm.
Okay. So really sort of diverse background, which I'm assuming when it comes to the book, lots of that experiences sort of came to mind. So tell us, what is Human Resources Changes the World? What's the book about?
Yeah, okay, great question. So back in 2013, and maybe before that, I was just noticing where HR was, and I wanted to. I'm the sort of person who, when I see something isn't right, wants to do something about it. So I approached the Derby University in 2014 and said, "Look, I've got this thing about, when we say that people are so important to every organization, firm, and company around the world, why is it that certain decisions are being made, and where is HR in that at that point in time, and what do we need to do to evolve?" Because I just felt that we were evolving, but not fast enough. And there were certain things that I just didn't feel were right. So Derby University then turned around and said, "Look, Glenn, can we have 10,000 words from you?" And at the time, I just started my consultancy career. I
Mhm.
just didn't have the opportunity. So then in 2017, I thought, well, I was in Amsterdam airport and someone said, "Write a book. At least you can get it out there then and sort of start to get the debate and the spark that you want to generate." So essentially, the book is about two things. It's about where HR is today, and it even stands now, Lee, on the test of time now,
Yeah.
around what do we stand for? What are we doing? How 21st century are we? So it's really challenging the behavior, the mindset, the skills that we have. And instead of demanding a seat at the table, it's asking the question about why should we be at the
Yeah.
table, and elevating the function. That's the first part. The second part then was coming back to people being important. Why is it that HR directors don't become CEOs? when every other function has the credibility and the influence to actually make that connection and that elevation into that role. And actually, it's that part of it that I've then taken on now in the last 2 years to actually do a doctorate in. So I've decided that that's going to be my focus, and that's what I'm researching right now.
Ah, very interesting. So the person in Amsterdam airport, was that a colleague, a friend, a stranger? How did that, who was that?
So I was working with a client at the time, and
Yeah.
with Accenture, it was one of the Accenture
Ah,
managers who
oh, I
suggested it.
see.
It was a brilliant idea of his. So thank you, Stephen, for that. And it went from there then, because what the book enabled me to do was to literally start to really challenge it. It is Marmite. It's a Marmite book.
Okay.
It's never going to be a bestseller, but it was never about making money. It was about the passion of making a change, the passion of engendering a debate around, do we stand still or do we move forward? And from that perspective, I've really enjoyed writing the book because it has made people start to think about it. And I see more of the debate out there now than there ever was previously. And that's great news, because I think that means that people are really interested. They're starting to look at, what do we do and why do we do it? Instead of just asking the question all the time about um, why we need to sit at the table, why don't HR directors make that leap? What do we need to change as a function going forward, instead of having the same old play through? So that's a little bit about it.
Interesting. Yeah.
It was a really good thing to do.
So obviously you enjoyed writing it. How was the research element? Because I know that you reached out to me for some support, and I'm sure you've reached out to others and things as well. So how did you find that? Was it a challenging sort of book to research for?
Yeah, it wasn't in so much because I was
Mm.
building the research up for the book over a
Yeah.
period of years. So I was taking information from all sorts of different areas, and I interviewed a few people that
Mhm.
would bravely step into the mix for this, because unfortunately, from a HR perspective, we're not really that great at generalizing as a function of really sort of challenging the norm.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, the research was built up over a period of time, which then made writing the book very easy for me.
Yeah.
But I've known other people who really struggle with the topic that they're writing about if they've not had that time to build up the narrative.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I found the process really, really easy. And of course, if you're passionate about doing something,
Yeah.
that comes through. And the style that I wrote the book in wasn't a style of an academic. It wasn't the style
Yeah.
of somebody who traditionally would write a book. It was more from a conversational point of view, which I've had some interesting feedback, which is great, that it was too conversational. But that's not what I
Okay.
wanted. I wanted an easy book that people could pick up in 3 hours and read,
Yeah.
and enough from it that would really entice them to either go, I either agree with Glenn or I don't. The
Yeah.
very fact that they've read it is enough for me.
Yeah. I think it was always a good potential flight book. I used to read a lot of books when I was flying, or a Sunday afternoon, sort of if you've got a sunshine and just relaxing in the garden, have a read. So that sounds really good. So
That's why, Leon, I created the Audible as well. So I
okay,
actually
it's on
couldn't
there.
record it myself. I actually got someone else to do it, which was great.
Fab.
So
Yeah.
from that perspective, it was a fun thing to do, because then
Ah.
it just gives it a different dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people obviously will prefer to listen
Yes.
to an audiobook than read a book. So
Yeah.
apart from your own book, then I always ask this at the end of the book club. Which, apart from your own book, which book would you most recommend to a fellow HR professional?
Okay, so I've got several, as you can see behind me,
Yeah.
and a few more that aren't on there. Otherwise, it would be ridiculous. But I think the book, and you'll tell that I've read it, is Kevin Green's Competitive People Strategy.
Oh
So
yeah. Okay.
that one, and you can see that
Yeah.
I've got a lot from it.
A lot of notes around there.
Yes, there's a lot of notes. So there's a lot of great stuff within Kevin's writing as well. And again, the way he's written it, I really like it. But
Yeah.
there's some really good tips. What I find the best books are the ones that talk to you about something, but then give you an action to get out of it, rather than just critically writing it and going, it's almost so what.
Yeah.
Which is why when I've written that book, Human Resources
Mhm.
Change the World, you'll find that it talks about the issues, but also comes up with the facts and
Yeah.
the actions. And with the instruction is really a call to arms. And what I'm
Mm.
saying is not everybody wants to become a CEO, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that there is an option there at the end of your career, or there is an option in your career rather than not the end, that doesn't have to stop at HR director or CPO
Yeah.
level. But there's some things that need to change to enable that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Glenn, thank you very much for talking us through your book and taking the time to, yeah, let us know a bit about what motivated you to do it, what it's about, and also the recommendation there at the end as well. So, yeah, thank you for your time.
No problem. Thanks, Leon. Have a great day.